you.
Thank you.
So I have a new backdrop. I'm not fancy like you guys. I admit.
That's a great backdrop.
That looks much more fun than what's behind me at the moment.
In fact, I even found you guys are like this. The next meeting, I found one for Canfields.
How are you?
It was a restaurant. I think the guy works on Porsches at that house now, but down there on PCH. But it was a store restaurant combination thing. Cool picture. But anyway, I'll put that up on the next one. So I got a few of these just to do something different.
What year was that restaurant?
Well, I don't know, 60s anyway, I think.
Cool.
The Canfield, is it Canfield or Canefield? Canfields, I guess. That's obviously probably 60s, early 60s, mid 60s.
Predates me.
Here's my,
It's Skylar.
yeah, we all got our haircut.
Yeah,
I'm getting a little
you're cutting out, Skylar.
Yeah,
of
you.
an unstable internet connection.
I see. Okay, well, the gang is more or less here. If you're ready to go,
I
welcome to.
think I am. Now I'm counting heads and I think we have enough. Okay, here we go. Good evening, friends and neighbors. I would like to call to order the Malibu Planning Commission regular meeting of June 5th, 2023. This meeting is being held by teleconference due to COVID-19 pandemic. Commissioners and city staff are participating in this Zoom meeting from remote locations. All votes will be taken by roll call. Members of the public can participate in the meeting or watch it by going to malibucity.org/virtual meeting. At that screen, click on one of two tabs to either watch or sign up to speak on particular items. Those wishing to speak must be present in the Zoom meeting to be recognized. Please sign up before the item has been called by the chair. Those who wish to defer time to someone else intending to speak are not required to sign up, but must be present in the meeting. If instead of speaking, you wish to donate your time to another speaker, please click the raised hand button at the bottom of the Zoom screen when the public hearing for the item is open. A speaker may accept up to 5 additional minutes, 1 minute each from each speaker that defers time for a maximum total of 8 minutes. Alex, would you please, there it is, right on cue. Commissioners, when you have comments, please raise your hand. I will call you in turn so we can make our discussion discussion clear for the record and the public. Jesus, think I'd get this by now. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Hill,
Here.
Commissioner Jennings,
Here.
Commissioner Peak,
Here.
Vice Chair Mazza,
Here.
Chair Smith.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Terrific. Okay. Approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move we can approve the agenda as recommended by staff with the item 5A continued to a date uncertain.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Vice Chair Mazza.
Yes.
Commissioner Jennings,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Peak,
Yes.
Chair Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Report on the posting of the agenda.
The agenda for this meeting was properly posted on May 26, 2023.
Ceremonial presentations. We don't have any yet, someday, hopefully. Written and oral communications from the public. Communication from the public and concerning matters which are not on the agenda, but which the Planning Commission has subject matter jurisdiction. The Commission may not act on these matters except to refer the matters to staff or schedule the matters for a future agenda. Rebecca, who do we have?
This evening we have Ryan Embry, and while Ryan is speaking, if you're present in the meeting and wish to speak on an item that is not agendized tonight, please click the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. And Ryan is just entering the meeting, so we'll give him just a moment. And let me see if I see him connecting. Brian, we're ready for you.
Yes. Excuse me. I'm calling, coming. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes. Okay. I'm addressing the illegal antenna pole at 23555 Civic Center Way, which has somehow got classified under the wrong address of the courthouse at 23525 Civic Center Way. And so that's made this a bit of a sleuthing problem to figure out what's going on with all the other applications that go to the FAA and the FCC and so forth, where this pole changes from a 75-foot pole and becomes a 91-foot pole and so forth. But I'm here to get an update if there is one, but this is a code enforcement issue, and we're all watching and not seeing any change occur here. And that is simply a pole that was ordered out of some catalog, is bolted together in sections that needs to be unbolted and laid down in the backyard somewhere until we figure out what the heck's going on. It cannot be used for its intended purpose, so there's no point in it remaining there, and it violates the conditions of the approval for the project of the college and everything else. One of the conditions was that they apply for a conditional use permit, and that didn't happen for a year, and somehow the college got a certificate of occupancy and they can operate or something. But none of this has been on the up and up. It's been a moving target. I know staff knows this. It's a sore spot. The council hates it. Every commissioner I've talked to on both the commissions hates it. And it's time that the city really stood up and protected the residents from this. It's been a manipulation of government processes. It was a disingenuous application. There's inconsistencies with what was told to the FAA, and the correction letter that was written by Nicholas Sanders from the FAA says everything in there. Why was it a correction letter? Well, I guess it didn't qualify first go around. That's my opinion. But the second is that says in there, nothing in the approval by the FAA with all of their conditions for, Mickey Mouse paint job and flashing lights and everything else gets the applicant out of local and state and other federal requirements. And he didn't have to put that separate paragraph sentence in the letter, but he did. And I think for good reason, to save his job. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Our next speaker is Joe Drummond.
Hey there, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, I'm just piggybacking on what Ryan just said. I know that they were supposed to apply for a CUP even before the antenna was built, that tower. And even Paul Grisanti at the Brown Act training said that the thing needs to be taken down. So I don't know why it hasn't been revoked, the permit, or why hasn't it been taken down, I don't know what's taking so long. It's been over a year, so we just want some answers. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. If there are any other speakers present in the meeting who wish to speak on items not on the agenda, please click the raise hand button now. And seeing none.
Okay, back to us. Fellow commissioners, Commissioner Hill.
Good evening, everybody. Commissioners, staff, public. Anybody's watching tonight? Oh, 7:19. Okay. Yeah, a couple things. One is that some time ago, a year maybe ago, I suggested that it would be helpful if the consent items had a little bit more narrative description about what the application was actually for. And I think that improved for a little while, and then it's kind of dropped back to the point where it's virtually all boilerplate again. And maybe that's because we have new planners, or I don't know if the thought just didn't get institutionalized. But like, for example, 3B4 tonight, the entire application is boilerplate except for like one paragraph in the geotech review. And I don't know, it may be coincidence, or I may have been talking about the same thing, but tonight's minutes from March 21st last year called out that I mentioned a California appellate case, Elkhorn Slough versus Coastal Commission, where the court found that even when a project was declared exempt from CEQA review, it was still necessary to include the specific findings about why it was exempt. And I may have been mentioning that as an analogy to these consent items, that we still needed to have some description about things, or I may have called that out for a different reason now. But anyway, it would be helpful on these things to know, for example, if it's for an OWTS, is it the tank twice as big as the one it's replacing? Is it possibly near a stream or a front yard setback? Is the expected use a family or a rehab, or just sort of anything for us to contextualize what is this and say, oh yeah, that's an easy pass, or that's oh, hang on, that deserves a little extra look. And then next point, in the minutes from April 4th, 22, it specifies that I questioned when the Public Safety Commission would be asked for feedback on the impact of accessory dwelling units on evacuation plans. And I just don't remember, I forget whether there ever was any discussion on public safety about evacuations. It'd be good to get a reminder or an update on that. And then my last point is, here we are reviewing minutes from over a year ago, and both these things I've pointed out are things that I barely remember now. And can we do something to get the minutes out more quickly, like the next meeting, like they really should be? Because otherwise it's just kind of an exercise in futility to even ask us to review them, because what do we remember of the meeting from over a year ago? So if we're hiring more people to get that done faster, I know Rebecca's paddling as fast as she can, but let's, can we kind of close that gap somehow? And those are my comments.
Vice Chair Mazza.
Well, first I'd like to ask the Planning Commission to dedicate the meeting to John Wall, who, if you were around when we became a city, was majorly involved on different commissions in the General Plan Task Force. And he passed away a couple months ago, but nobody knew it. So I hope that happens. And so after this, I hope you can speak up and do that. Now, comment on minutes that Greg started commenting on it, but in reading them a year later, it's interesting and to see what we asked, what we got answered, and what we were promised. And I just want to give you an example on tonight's. I had asked Richard about getting people's names on the application so we know who was applying, and he said it was required. Well, we always get the expediter or somebody else instead of the owner, and we don't know who they are. If we do, sometimes it makes more sense, like, well, I don't want to comment on a particular one tonight, but it would have been a lot easier to review it if I'd known it was a rehab. The other one is on those minutes is the requirements for Aviator Nation. And I just wonder if it's been over a year since it was approved, and I wonder if we ever got a wall put in there like was required. And I wonder if they send in their 6-month schedule of events to Richard for pre-approval. That's a question I'd like to know, because it seems to me that they seem to be sort of random. And we were trying to let the neighbors know what was happening. And if they are sent in, where can the neighbors find that list? But that's basically it. Thank you.
Commissioner Jennings. I'm guessing you did.
Nothing. Sorry, I was muted. I'm having unstable internet problems myself.
Commissioner Peak.
I just wanted to say that I attended the first Little League parade in over 20 years, and I thought it was quite amazing. So I'm just going to add that hopefully that continues. And it was, I guess, a big help of the city to help my sister, Alicia, who's on the Parks Commission, who spearheaded it. And it was quite successful, and everybody was really impressed. And I thought that was really cool to see a lot of people from our community and the surrounding communities there supporting their children. So that was really awesome. And that's what I got for you.
That's good stuff. I don't have anything. Director Malika.
Richard, you're muted.
Sorry, pushing too many buttons here. To respond to Commissioner Vice Chair Mazza's comments, the owner name is printed on the agenda. It's also in the first paragraph of the administrative coastal development permits, and it's also been published in the cover, the agenda report that precedes or ahead of the ACDPs. I do remember the conversation because the concern, I believe, was that we were giving the names of the applicant, and the commission wanted the names of the owners. So I will continue to make sure it's in those three spots, but we have it there. With respect to Aviator Nation, there was an appeal that was heard by the council, if I'm not mistaken, in October. And Rebecca, not to put you on the spot, but I think Aviator Nation did not receive their final executed copy of the resolution until just a few weeks ago.
I believe that was 2 to 3 weeks ago.
Okay, so we are in the process of asking them, or excuse me, they've been asked. Now they need to return the signed executed copy of that resolution, and then that way we can officially start following the processes and making certain that the requirements have been followed, because that will effectuate the permit once they have accepted the permit. So we are waiting for the acceptance of conditions to be submitted. I also would like to announce that we had 2 new staff members start today in the department. One was placement for one of our admin folks. Her name is Gail Duncan. She is, you'll see her name helping out with Rebecca on projects, but she is a new admin person, and Rebecca will have to be training. So you have to be patient with Rebecca. She may be a little busy. And one of 2 assistant planners started today. His name is, I'm blanking on his last name, I'm sorry, but his first name is Larby. Larby comes to us with a heavy background actually in government affairs, but they deal with economics. Larby is wrapped up a master's in planning and going for a change in work. So he'll be moving from the economic side to planning. So we'll be working with Larby, and hopefully you guys will be able to meet him soon. And in a couple weeks, we have another planner starting with us, someone I was able to snag from Ojai, but he is somebody who has experience with development in communities where there are major resource concerns. And that was one of the big hiring point was we are trying to find folks that have coastal experience and also experience in dealing with protecting sensitive resources. And that, unfortunately, is not as easy as it seems. So those are my announcements. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, sir. Okay, the consent calendar, previously discussed items, we don't have any, so we go to 3B1, which is...
Chair Smith?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I asked 2 questions of Richard, but I guess I didn't put question marks on the end. So Richard, if you have a comment on either, including a little more narrative in the consent items, and did the Public Safety Commission ever look at ADU evacuation plans?
Rebecca, is your hand up?
I was just going to mention to the commission that at our next meeting, we will be holding elections for chair and vice chair, so people can be thinking ahead to that. And I'm sure you have responses for Craig's questions. If not, I can.
So I believe that we did mention the matter to the city manager's office. This body, and Rebecca or Trevor, perhaps you can correct me if I'm here, if I'm mistaken in this, but this body does not have the ability to refer items to other commissions. Correct, Trevor?
Right. Yeah, that's correct. I didn't know if there was if the council had referred something to one of these bodies, but I don't know the history here. But yeah, the planning commission can't send items to Public Works Commission.
Yeah, and I don't think that we were necessarily asking for it ourselves. I thought that maybe it was reported that that was going to happen. And again, it's over a year now, so I don't remember exactly.
No, I believe, and I can speak with our consultant on ADUs, and I think Tyler might be here to see if he recalls. But the ADUs are going to the council, and the council will then have the ability to put it on the Public Safety Commission's plate if the council feels that that's appropriate. But as I mentioned, we passed along the request, but it's not a decision that's up to me or as Trevor mentioned, on this body. And then in respect to project descriptions, I'll be glad to look at those. I want to say that there is some information about what was there in the I believe in the septic referral. Occasionally they put that in. They may have changed what they're doing. In general, we typically stay at a real high level about what was there because the focus is the new development, whatever it may be. Typically, like for a house, we say if the house was built in 1971, it was 2,000 square feet, and we leave it at that. Sometimes maybe we go a little bit further. But I could definitely look at project descriptions to see what folks are doing. And I'm looking at what we have tonight, and I believe those descriptions are pretty consistent with what we have done over the past years. I wouldn't say we deviated from anything recently, but be glad to look at those.
Well, yeah, I didn't look at them systematically other than to notice on 3B4, it's literally all boilerplate, except for that one paragraph in the geo review that actually tells you how many gallons and, just, it seems like there should be some description, not only of the past, but the present. What are they actually proposing to do here? So.
Sure. And on 3B4, it's a de minimis waiver.
Yeah.
And we're trying our best to streamline those because since those are fire rebuilds, truthfully, we're just trying to get those out.
Right. And I'm just saying, it's a form and there's a box you check Woolsey and a box you check, exempt and whatever. But I guess my question is why even send it to us if there's nothing on it for us to review?
Sure. The purpose for why we're doing this is really a required reporting. It's not that we're looking for a review by the Planning Commission. It's the amendment that was processed that created the de minimis waiver system. The purpose here is reporting, and so that's why we give you the information we do. And like I said, these we did our best to standardize them because I know that they had been different before. And the goal here was these are fire victims. Let's move them through.
All right. To be continued, I guess. Thank you.
Commissioner Peak.
Thank you, Chair. So kind of piggybacking on John's question about the applicant versus owner listing on the I guess the agendas and stuff like that. Is it possible to have both the applicant and agenda and the owner listed? Like, because I think that sometimes there's some confusion in that. I mean, I know that a lot of these are just coming from, a lot of people have the property registered in an LLC or something else. So you're not necessarily going to get an individual there. And then the next part of that question is, do you want to go, John, to the extent of saying if it's a corp or an LLC or whatever that owns the property, do you want to see who the managing partner is? You know, if that's what you're looking for. I just didn't know if we have the ability to list that stuff on there or not. And if that kind of helps better answer his question. So I would start with that, and then I have a couple more.
Well, let me just comment on that. I'm just going on what's required. And what's required is the owner. To go into the I'm sure a bunch of these things are in Curacao or something. You're never going to find the LLC owner. So all I need to know is if it's a recognizable name or, you know, it's a rehab number 4, it'll give you a clue what's going on. Rather than anything else, just what's required by the codes.
All right. I mean, look, I don't really have an issue with it. I think that sometimes just internally, I know that when we get sort of like, here's the upcoming projects for the week kind of on the spreadsheet, that sometimes it would be helpful to have I think it's sometimes we don't get the address on there, but we get the application number. I'll deal with that, and I'll talk to Richard about that separately. We don't need to do that here, but I think that there's a little bit more info on there that would make it a little bit easier for us. That's all I'm saying.
I agree.
Craig nodding his head.
More info, the better.
Okay. And then my next question is for Trevor is, so on consent, right, we have some meeting minutes from a meeting that I wasn't present at. Do I need to just like say, okay, I approve these items, sidebar? Obviously, you know, I wasn't at that meeting because I wasn't on the commission at the time, or like what's the
you have two options. One, you can go back and you can review those minutes and or that meeting and vote, or you can just state that you're recusing yourself from or you're abstaining from voting on whichever set of minutes it is that you were not present for.
You can save 6 hours in some cases.
Got it. Thank you. All right. Appreciate it.
Okay, Vice Chair Mozzie, you had your hand up before Commissioner Peak asked you the question.
Oh, okay. I want to pull 3B2.
I'd like to pull 3B1 for a quick question.
And there was somebody in the public that pulled something.
And 3B3 for a quick question.
And I would like to make a motion to approve the consent.
If I may, we have a member of the public who would like to also poll 3B5.
3B5?
Yes.
That's the minutes.
Yep.
So that was
Okay.
3B5 that were pulled.
I think we've pulled everything except for 3B4.
And I would vote to approve the consent calendar or pulling the items that are pulled, but I need to abstain or not vote on 3B1 because I had worked for that property owner at some point in the past.
Okay, thank you.
And
The only thing,
go ahead.
no, the only thing that's left is a receive and file, so we don't need to have a motion on it at this point.
Well, Scott, are you going to recuse yourself on 3B5, the minutes?
Well, hold
Yeah,
on. The only item that is on the consent item is 3B4, right?
3B4.
Okay, then can we just get a motion just to approve that one so that it's.
I'll make a motion to approve item 3B4.
It's a receive and file.
Yeah, but we need to take the action.
We never take action on a receive and file.
I know, but we need to. Otherwise, if we approve the consent calendar, then we don't need to call the item, get a staff report, and then receive and file it.
Okay, so
Okay, so do we vote? Do we consent to I'll second whatever that motion was.
Well, even I'm pretty sure I got this one. It's a receive and file. We don't have to talk about it.
Trevor
Yeah,
just
but
said we had to
if we
vote.
don't want to hear the item, if you don't want to have a staff report, then it needs to be approved at the consent. So it's either we get a staff report and then you can receive and file it, or we can approve it as part of the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve item 3B4.
As part of the consent calendar?
Correct.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Peak,
Yes.
Vice Chair Mazza,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Jennings,
Yes.
Chair Smith.
Yeah, I guess so.
Motion carries.
Okay, well, 3B1,
Yeah, I pulled that. I put in a letter.
I'm going to step out for 3B1.
This will be really-
And you don't actually need to leave the meeting on the consent item, I believe. You just abstain
Well,
from discussion.
He would, because we're actually calling the item. If we were going to take a motion on the whole consent calendar, then that would be correct. But
Okay,
you're
I
going to.
think we might have handled that differently last time. Thank you.
I just had a really quick question. I submitted an email on this on Friday. It just sounds like something needs to be conformed because the staff report calls it a multifamily residence with detached garage, and the geotech report calls it a single family residence. So we just need to make sure that they were actually reviewing the same thing, or, and I had hoped this would be resolved by now, but is that something to just to clean up the language there, or does the geotech have to actually re-review it, or what's the remedy here?
I believe we have Senior Planner Eaton available to answer questions for this item. We also have Kevin Poffenbarger, who is the consultant for the item.
oh yes, there he is.
Hey, Tyler.
Hey, Commissioner. So yeah, thank you. By the way, I'm a member of the public. So we looked into that question. It was merely a typo, and the project reviewed. The building should confirm the project was reviewed by her staff, both geotechnical and environmental health at multifamily rents, as it was properly derived in the staff report. It's a 3-unit multifamily residence.
Does anything need to be conformed just on paper, or just you have the resolution and you forget about the supporting documents at this point, or how does that work?
I think, if the commission's will, we can get that changed for the record. I see it being a big problem, but I guess the lead of the question.
Is there a typographical error in the actual the approval, or is it in the staff report?
It's in the geotechnical review sheet.
And there's a typographical error, and it should say single family, not multifamily, correct?
It should say, yeah. It should say multifamily, but it currently says existing single family.
Okay, so, and what page is that correction on?
It was 22. Let me try that.
Malika, you got your hand up?
Thank you very much, Chair. These referrals that are given to you here, these are just the planning level. These reviews, once what happens tonight takes place, the project will go back to these agencies. A new referral will be generated because they'll be now at the building plan check phase. And it's that final stamp and final documentation that is that goes towards the permit, and that will be the record, if you will, for anybody in the future. So these are items that are caught early enough to where we can make certain, and the building official is aware of it, that going into plan check, that they correct that on their documents. Because tonight, if you will, the final document is the report that we generated, the planning report, because after
ACDP itself.
Right, we don't need, or we're not required to do anything further than that. But these referrals are going to be updated and are going to now be looked at a higher level of detail. Now it's more, there's a lot of math and engineering that's going to get presented.
So there's not an error in the ACDP itself, which is, there's an 11-page ACDP. It's one of the supporting pieces of documentation. There's a typographical error. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. In that case, there's nothing that would need correction.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Jennings?
Yeah, I know I've talked about this before, but if somebody could please get on to the Environmental Health Department and talk to them about their standard condition that requires a on-site wastewater treatment system covenant running with the land to be recorded with the City of Malibu Recorder's Office. As far as I know, there's no such office. And there's in bold print, it says, please submit a certified copy issued by the City of Malibu Recorder. I think what you're talking about, it's the County of Los Angeles County Recorder. That language is stuck in there. If somebody could get out the computer and strike it out and make that correction, it would just make me feel more comfortable. Thank you. That's all.
Director Malika.
I will follow up with Yolanda. Yes, because it could either be the county recorder or we do allow folks now to record with the city clerk, but I don't believe Kelsey is referred to as the Malibu recorder, but I will follow up on that.
Thank you.
Question on that, Richard. If they record it with the city clerk, when you do a title search at the county, does it show up?
No.
Well, that seems strange.
It should.
It would, yes, because what happens is we're able to take in the document, process it, I think would be the proper term to use, and then forward it to the recorder's office.
Kelsey had to go through a specific training.
Rebecca, you got your hand up.
I do apologize. I clearly missed that in my review. And that is an outdated version of what was a standard condition. Our standard condition template has been updated with the correct language, so I can make that correction to the report before the final document.
No, we shouldn't change any conditions. Otherwise, Richard would have to reissue it.
Okay, perfect.
But going forward, it should be corrected.
But it was a typographical error, and in a sense, it's the condition itself is updated. Sometimes somebody uses an older template and it reflects an older condition.
Okay.
It appears in 3B2 as well, so
Can't change it.
the outdated template seems to be going viral.
Okay, we're good with that. Commissioner or Vice Chair Mazza, you want to talk about 3B2?
Yes, and as a matter of
That's received and
disclosure,
filed then.
It also is, but it's been pulled.
As I was saying, item 1 was then received and filed by the chair, and then
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Peak back for the next item.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Next item, 3B2.
I'll give him a call right now. Thank you.
okay, I guess I'm on 3B2. As a matter of
Let's
disclosure,
wait for Commissioner Peak to return.
oh,
Hi, Renika.
Hi,
Senior Planner Brooks, welcome.
thank you. Should I wait till Commissioner Peak is back?
He should be here. There he is.
Okay, there he
Bright
is.
lights behind him and everything.
Did you want a brief staff report, or would you like me just to answer some questions you may have?
I think Vice Chair Mazza has some questions, and I'm guessing we would go from there.
Okay.
okay. Well, I asked Renika for documents on the retaining wall and the geotech because number one, my question is, it doesn't appear that this is an exempt use. It's not part of a house. And the geotech reports that it's not part of it, that it's the septic tank is not a structure. And so the first question would be, how can we do this as a consent item? We normally get septic tanks anyway as CDPs, ACDPs, and we treat them as such. That's one question. The other question is, when you read the geotech report, the one dated the only one in here, the one dated on 12/6/22, it says, because this is an ACDP, the site must meet both seismic and long-term static stability conditions in the LIP and LCP in the city's 2013 geodetical guidebook, or applicant must obtain a variance, blah, 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 blah. That's the only geotech report that's in the staff report. It's signed by Christine and Lauren Doyle. I got several others, all of which said it was incomplete, and they were dated prior to, well, actually, the one that was sent in by the applicant was 6 months prior to the review, and the review turned it down. Then there was a later one by Paulo Quinto, which I have to find the date on. It was a very brief one, but it also said incomplete. And so, and just as a matter of background, if you read those, this is a slide zone with a historic slide, and that's why they're requiring this. With, I guess there was a violation because of the slide, and the retaining wall is railroad ties, which we don't allow. So to me, we can't take this in the consent item. And it's an incomplete file. So I would recommend that we have it brought back in the proper form. Now there's several other things, but they're nitpicky, but there's no mention of a variance at all in the ACDP. And it requires hydrangeas, a seismic study, and a regular slope analysis study, and it's just not there. So, you know, Craig was talking about incomplete files. This one, number one, even the geotechnical report says it requires a CDP because it's not part of the structure. And the 4 limits that are given in the staff report on how you can do this, it's not a house, it's not a water well, it's not a driveway, it's not a demolition, second dwelling units aren't counted, it's not a dwelling unit, and it's not, and the one half of it, the OWTS, is eligible, but the other half, retaining wall for slide remediation, is not eligible under section 1313 and 1329. So I recommend that we continue it, or we, I don't know what you say, but put it in proper form in the proper forum.
Okay, Commissioner Commissioner Hill, sorry.
John, was that a motion to call this a full CDP, or what's?
I don't know if I can make a motion or how it works. Trevor, what would I do?
Yeah, well, I think we should let Renika speak about what you raised right here, and then if the commission wants to take action, the action would then be required to be a full CDP, and you would need a vote of a majority.
If I may take my floor here. Yeah, I had a couple other points, but I'll save them now just to clarify what John just said. It must meet both seismic and long-term stability, otherwise they need a variance. And then elsewhere, it also says remedial repair was performed, but the project geotechnical consultant determined that the repair as proposed would not provide the required seismic factor of safety. So we're saying affirmatively, it doesn't meet the factor, and we're also saying it needs a variance if it doesn't. And so it seems pretty clear that that's what John's calling for here.
Okay, Senator Kendra Brooks, go ahead.
So, I guess first I wanted to speak to the slope stability. In one of the geotechnical reports that I sent this afternoon, Commissioner Bonza, the applicant's geotechnical consultant indicated that the soldier pile wall needed to be extended in order to meet the required factor of safety. That's why the extension of the wall is included as part of the project scope. It's my understanding that you are correct. There was a landslide or there was some slope stability issues almost about 20 years ago, which was repaired. But apparently there is still landslide debris on the property, which caused some stability issues, hence the need for the extension of the soldier pile wall. Regarding the administrative treatment of this application, there's actually two sections that apply to this project, and I wanted to clarify that for the record. On PDF page 4 of your agenda report for this item, which is page 2 of the notice of decision, in the section that discusses the administrative permit applicability, I did cite section 13.29, which is the section that discusses administrative treatment for OWTS projects. But this project, the extension of the pile wall also qualifies for administrative treatment under section LIP section 13.13.1, which is considered an improvement to a residential development. There was not a slope analysis provided for this application, but I did look at the cross sections, particularly in the geotechnical report done by Cal West. I believe it's titled Cal West Addendum. That's the report that I sent this afternoon. It includes a couple of cross sections through the area that has the soldier pile wall, which shows that it's basically on a flat portion of the property. So the only reason why a variance would be needed is if that wall were proposed on steep slopes. I don't know if there's anything, if I missed anything, let me know, but I think that responds to your questions.
Thank you. Vice Chair Mazza.
Well, first, you can read what on that same page, you can read what it says about waiving review, but this, tell me what is not an improvement to a residential development. Everything that's done, putting in a lawn sprinkler, is an improvement to a residential development. Is a guest house an improvement? Is another 50 square feet an improvement? You know, that's we might as well not have meetings. Just make everything a consent item. That's obviously not what the law says, because we have many hours spent on houses that have improvements. The other thing is, this is separate. I mean, I am actually going to make a motion in a second to improve. I don't know if this can be done, and I have to ask Trevor. This staff report covers the OWTS. It's clear. But when it comes to the slope stability repair, which we have heard many CDPs on, that's a totally different item. If you and the report she stated that came from the consultant, subsequent to that, Paulo Quinto issued a incomplete notice, okay, which is what I got today. So there is nothing after that incomplete notice that says anything, that corrects anything. And it's not in the staff report. I had to dig it out this afternoon. So I think it's pretty clear that the OWTS is okay. We don't turn those down casually. But if you walked in here tomorrow morning and said, my OWTS is okay, but my hill's sliding, I want to fix my hill, we'd have a CDP hearing. I think there's no question about that. We've had many of them. And Dennis has fixed some of them. it's plain as day as far as I can tell. So I'm going to well, first I want to ask Trevor a question. Is it possible to approve part of this report? I mean, can we approve the OWTS because that's what they asked for, but not the retaining wall?
No, this is all paired as one, and the only option is to make it a full CDP. Do we have any public comment on this one before you make your motion?
Yes, we do.
And do we have any disclosures?
Well, you got mine, I think.
Vice Chair Mazza, disclosures.
I disclosed that I asked Renika to answer the question on applicability, and she gave the same answer she just gave. And I asked about the geotechnical reviews, and she sent me a couple of them. They're all dated prior to the latest incomplete letter.
No disclosure here, other than I'm looking at this and seeing other substantive issues that I don't know whether we can talk about them now, short of getting it to a CDP. So do I need to mention those before we vote? Does it need to be a CDP?
This is just disclosures for the immediate. Commissioner Jennings?
None.
Commissioner Peak?
None.
And for myself, none.
Okay, can I ask Trevor, the only motion I can make is
well, I think we have public comment first, Vice Chair.
Never mind.
Rebecca, can you bring up whoever wants to speak, please?
Yes, we have Kevin Poffenbarger for the applicant team this evening, if you'd like to provide any comments regarding this.
Good afternoon or good evening.
Good evening.
Commissioner Mazza and Chairperson Smith, thank you. So I wanted to comment specifically on this slope stability and the geotechnical response, which there was a February 2023 report that addressed this. And there's something in the LCP along the lines of 15 centimeters of displacement that is the threshold that triggers the need for slope stability for non-structural elements. And in this case, the displacement is less than 15 centimeters, and no soldier piles are required beyond ensuring the integrity of the on-site wastewater system. So if it were not for the on-site wastewater system, then nothing would be required on the slope. However, because we're putting an on-site wastewater system, 15 centimeters of slope displacement is not acceptable to protect public and environmental health. We need to include these components as part of the on-site wastewater system. So I think that is how it was addressed in the LCP, and that's all my only comment at the moment, but I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's any other member of the public who wishes to speak on this item, please click the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. And seeing none.
Okay, back to us. We were speaking, Vice Chair. Commissioner Hill.
Yeah, thank you. Well, one quick question is the plan shows a landscape wall demolition spec. Is that a separate permit, or is that's listed on here as something as work to do? Is that part of this?
I am not sure. Let me look.
Okay, and then this is a question that while you're doing that maybe Kevin Poffenbarger could address. And we're increasing the OWTS capacity from roughly 2,000 to roughly 7,500, so almost almost 4 times, 3.5 times. And yet the number of hydroggers in the hillside, I think, is staying the same. So if we're sort of almost quadrupling output, hypothetically, with the same number of hydroggers, it becomes material, I think, if you look at figure W0.02, which is on PDF 28. And I can sort of illustrate here. It's not going to come into, oh, it's not going to come into focus because I have the, all right, I'll try to take that off. Basically, the hydrogger on that section view drains from directly beneath the OWTS system. Trying to find my preferences here. It drains directly from underneath the OWTS. So it's pretty clear that the hydroggers would be taking 3 or 4 times the capacity that they're currently taking. And then that hydrogger empties out just beyond the newly proposed pile wall. And I guess some of the hydroggers go past the existing piles elsewhere. But then the section view shows the hydrogger emptying out behind a railroad tie retaining wall, implying that we're going to theoretically be putting 4 times as much liquid out past the new wall, but behind the railroad ties, and potentially getting that to saturate the ground out there. So, I mean, I guess this is not necessarily something we can address right now. I think this is more a case that this wants a CDP to look at that more closely. And Renika, did you find your about the landscape wall demolition?
I'm looking at the plan now.
It's mentioned on the plan view, which is, well, I think you probably know where that is.
Mm-hmm. I suspect so, because it looks like there's some type of dispersal field in the area of that landscape wall. So it looks like they're going to remove that.
And that wouldn't that again be something else that would bump this into a full CDP?
No, it's considered an improvement to a residential development.
A demolition?
Well, okay, and then finally, I didn't get a clear answer to the fact that they say if it doesn't meet the seismic standard, it must obtain a variance. And we have a report here saying the geotechnical consultant determined that it would not provide the required seismic factor of safety. So that's
Which report are you looking at? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'm reading from the geotech report, and it states, I'll quote it, the project geotechnical consultant determined that the repair as proposed would not provide the required seismic factor of safety.
So it's my understanding, and I'm not sure what date that report is, and that's another thing that I meant to mention in my response to Commissioner Mazza's questions. I sent probably 4 or 5 different reports, but there are several additional reports. I'm not sure if I sent you the latest. That was the basis for the conceptual approvals. But this project has been in the process for about 3 years, primarily because of concerns related to the slope stability of the area. In one of the reports, so it's quite possible, Commissioner Hill, that you're reviewing a report that had a different version of the project that did not achieve the factor of safety. In one of the reports that I was looking at earlier today, I did see reference to the soldier pile wall extension as what would be adequate for achieving the required factor of safety.
Well, I only see one geotech report in the file in the packet, and I don't see that any others were sent to us today.
Oh, well, typically we don't put the entire geotechnical. Are you referring to the referral sheet?
The review sheet, yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
The review sheet says the seismic, as proposed, would not provide the required seismic factor of safety.
Okay, let me go to that.
Well, I got 4 technical reports. All were predated by the last disapproval by Paolo Quinto. Before that, it was Lauren Doyle and
Christine.
Just to add to that, we were just told by Renika that there was a 2000 and I believe 13 slope failure that was not remediated, and that's the reason for this remediation. It has nothing to do with the septic tank. It was already there. The septic tank at the time was deemed fine. The reason this septic tank apparently is going in is because this is a rehab, and they've got something like 17 people using the house. I forgot what the number is. It's in one of these reports. It has, but the retaining wall fixing that had to do with the slide. And I'd like to ask Richard, can you explain why any improvement on a residential development is exempt from a CDP?
That's not exempt.
Well, that's what Renika read.
No. You're confusing exemption from administrative.
Well, okay, administrative. Well, I mean, why do we have long hearings on retaining walls if all we have to do is go, oh, we'll accept that?
Chair, if I may?
Go, please.
Certainly. So just to back up a little bit, Ronika, was it 2007 that the administrative coastal development permit was reported to the commission for the remediation?
Yes, and the ECDP was done in 05, I believe.
Yeah. So there was a 2005 emergency coastal development permit, and then followed by an administrative permit that was reported to the commission in 2007, and that was the remediation of the slope and also the permit for that soldier pile wall. And it's not, as Commissioner Jennings pointed out, that they're exempt from a coastal development permit. It's that there are two processing roadmaps for coastal development permits. There are permits that are able to be processed at an administrative level. It is a coastal development permit. It's issued by the planning director and reported to the commission. And then there's also the roadmap for when a project requires a public hearing and a decision to be made by this body for that coastal development permit to be issued. And it depends on location. If there is a discretionary attachment to it, such as neighborhood standards or a variance, not a site plan review or a minor modification. So there are criteria that are in the code that guide staff on how to process. And that is why we also do what's called a notice of hearing requirements that goes out to the applicant as to notify them how their application is going to be processed. And we also provide a copy of that same document at the same time to the Coastal Commission so that they understand how we will be processing an application. And in the past, they have commented if they feel that it should be a full hearing, if not administrative. Tonight, if the commission has concerns what was written on the geotechnical referral, if there's a majority vote, this matter could be essentially, Trevor, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it could be pulled from the agenda. And I would think the proper thing is for the commission to, I don't believe they could continue it to ask for more information, but they would have to ask for a full hearing. Is that correct?
Yeah, the only action available to the commission here is to make it a full CDP. If there was some error or something, then you, Richard, as the planning director, could withdraw it and reissue. But I don't think that you're seeing that there is an error that requires withdrawal and a new a CDP to be approved. Correct?
That's correct. I do admit the way they wrote that, they put an "or" in that sentence, which is very frustrating. But it's my understanding that if the wall is not installed, then there is a concern about stability. But I do know that our engineers are very much aware of LIP section 9.4 and its requirements and what meets the definition of new development, which would then trigger that section. So I have confidence that our reviewers have followed the code. But I do see they put an "or" in there, and I could see where that's causing confusion.
Can I ask you a question? if there was no septic tank, and we've been told you got to have this for the septic tank, and you have a slope that's sliding, and there's a house on the lot, can you just go out and do an ACDP and say we gave a CDP in 2007. It's still sliding. They didn't remediate it, but we're going to fix it administratively. Can you do that? Or how can that be an improvement on a residential development is my real question.
If this were located in the appeal zone, or if it required a variance, it would then be a full public hearing. But there are no variances associated with it. The fact that it's a landslide, that doesn't make it anything different. It's, let me take that back. If it was a landslide on a vacant property, that would be a different situation because you don't have a house. But since there is a residence on this property, this is considered accessory development to that residence.
Other than, as different than a guest house.
It's accessory development to single family residences. I believe that
And that's a guest house.
no, this property is developed with a single family residence.
No, but if you had a guy who wanted a guest house, could he walk into you and say, I want an ACDP?
Yes, for a guest house as well, because there's a guidance memorandum from the Coastal Commission that instructs us to process those as administrative coastal development permits. And also, once again, if it would be accessory development to the main residence. Guest houses are a bit unique, as I mentioned, because there is coastal guidance that says we are provided that it's consistent with the code, regardless of the appealability, it's administrative. Prior to that guidance, it would have had to deal with appealability.
I just want to point out that.
Yeah, excuse me, John. Let somebody else have a chance.
I'm still talking. Okay. I want to point out that your staff report, your geotechnical analysis by your staff says you need a variance unless you do these particular tests, and they were not done. So your staff is saying you need a variance. It's in writing right in the staff report. So this is why we haven't been presented with the real evidence. We've been told things in the geotechnical review that you tell us something different. And we don't have the current geotechnical reviews. I have them, you don't. And they say it didn't cut mustard. And if you follow by dates, it was not approved. So, and that's by Paula Quinto on, I forgot what day, it's in here somewhere. But if you stack them all up, the ones that Renika gave me, the last one says, no way. Okay. So how can we as a body consider something when there's obviously an incomplete record and we get told different stories? We get told, oh, it has to do with the house. It has to do with the septic tank. And then in the report, it says, no, it's a landslide. It's a remediation of a 2007 failed permit. There was no septic tank in 2007. There was, because it wasn't a rehab yet. This is my point. I mean, if we continue to just approve things without having the evidence or contradictory evidence, how can we tell somebody they need a 0.1 stability factor on and a 1.5 or seismic factor and a 1.5 whatever on other projects when we just don't even bother to get it here?
Okay, Vice Chair, you made your point. Thank you very much. Commissioner Jennings?
Yeah, okay. The LCP interpretation number 11 talks about the issue that we're dealing with here. And it says, LIP section 1313.1 differentiates between administrative CDPs and full or regular CDPs. The Planning Commission should use the criteria contained in LIP section 1313.1 to determine whether or not to transform an administrative CDP into a real or regular CDP. In other words, the Planning Commission should only consider whether or not the planning manager made the correct determination in treating an administrative CDP as such. So that's really the issue. The issue is whether this application falls within 1313.1 as an improvement to an existing structure. Just for context, a second unit, detached or unattached, is covered by a separate section of 1313.1, which talks about attached or detached second dwelling units, which shall be processed as administrative permits. And there's a different appeal process to the Coastal Commission, but they have to be processed as administrative projects. But that doesn't have anything to do with the other section of 1313.1. That's section A, which lists the things that are eligible to be treated as administrative permits. The improvements to an existing structure is the only one that comes close to applying in this case. And frankly, my question to Richard is it your testimony tonight that the city has consistently applied this sort of geotechnical issue as an improvement to a single family residence? I can't remember any time when it's been that like that. And frankly, if it's not that case, unless there's some strong program that has felt that holding these as improvements to single family residents, I'm inclined to say no. I'm inclined to agree with John that this is not an improvement to a single family residence. If that's the case, the motion would be to not allow this administrative plan review to go forward, because it's covered in our LIP. It's 1313. No, it's not 13.6, I believe. Because we say, no, this doesn't go forward. That gives the applicant the option of deciding whether he wants to go forward as a full CDP. That may be tantamount to saying, bring it back as a full CDP, but it gives the applicant the option to decide whether they want to come back as a full CDP. So that I'll return to my question, Richard, have there been any other cases where we have treated as improvements to a single family residence, retaining walls and geotechnical features of that sort?
If we were to treat, let me know if I'm not answering your question, please. I want to be clear, Commissioner. If we were to treat this as something other than an ACDP, we would be deviating from our standard practice. Staff reviewed, as I mentioned, we looked at the location of this project, and then whether or not any discretionary reviews, such as a variance or neighborhood standards, were required. Since those were not required, we have treated retaining walls and septic systems as accessory development to single family homes. And another example I could think of would just be if you look at an ACDP for a new house that we bring forward for reporting, you'll see that these structures are included as part of that development.
Okay. Commissioner Hill.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can try to clarify my concern previously, this is the diagram we're looking at, and over on the left side, you can see that the hydrogger sources from directly beneath the OWTS, and then it comes out and it goes through what would be the new proposed pile wall into what looks like fill or something on the other side, and then a railroad tie retaining wall that it looks like the hydrogger empties behind that wall. It just seems like there are some issues here that would deserve further exploration in terms of, if we're putting out 3 or 4 times as much capacity from the through the hydroggers, what are they going to do out on the front side of the wall there? Does everybody see what I'm talking about there? Just doesn't quite add up.
I see what you're talking about, if I might.
Yeah.
I see what you're talking about. My concern is if there's a way, the technical issues of it, to my mind, are not really things that I feel competent to make a decision on.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that the technical staff has considered those issues and made an appropriate determination. We earlier talked about the fact that this is planning review only, and it will go to building and safety and be plan checked at a different level of review. What assurance can we get, Richard, that those issues and those concerns that Mr. Hill is raising are going to be addressed in that process?
Our reviewers are tasked with implementing the LIP. And I get many emails from our geotechs asking me about concerns about factor of safety. Does this need a variance? Does this development not need a variance? So I feel confident that our reviewers are looking for these materials. They are tasked with implementing the building code as well as the local coastal program. I would be more than glad to pass a reminder on to the building official as she is aware of these and makes an effort to coordinate with the planning department to ensure that the city is implementing its local coastal program. So this will go back for a technical review, and it will be required to meet the, essentially what's happening is there's going to be a proposal, as you have before you, made by their engineer with claims, and our engineers will review those statements and designs for compliance. And if it passes essentially a smell test, does this actually seem like they're being honest with what they're proposing to us?
Has the Coastal Commission staff ever gotten back to the city and said, you know what, this is not an appropriate, I'm talking across the board. You have overstepped the bounds of an administrative coastal development permit. You really need to have these matters treated as CDPs. Have they ever come back to us on that?
Yes, they have. They have commented that they believe in some cases a full hearing is required, and they typically will state a reason. It could be public access or some sort of coastal resource concern that meets the requirements. We have our section where we talk about public notice and hearing requirements, and they use that section as a tool to make comment.
Okay, thank you.
Can I make a comment? I want to read a paragraph in the geotechnical review sheet. And it says, this is a quote from Christine, because this is an ACDP, the site must meet both seismic and long-term static stability conditions in the LCP, LIP, and the city's general 2013 geotechnical guidelines, or the applicant must obtain a variance from the planning department. The lower half of the site is within a potentially massive seismic induced landslide hazard zone. That's a quote. Now, they haven't met them. They didn't do a seismic test. They didn't do slope analysis, whatever it is. Everybody at Big Rock has to be 1 and 1.5, et cetera. And we also have to consider these are state codes and LCP codes. These aren't some guy's opinion, oh, this is okay. They are specific numbers. And then later on in one of the other geo reports, they describe how they have to do it. You have to do, what you do when you determine those things. It does not exist. And so we can't you can't say, oh gee, as far as I'm concerned, you can't say, oh gee, we're going to ignore what the LCP says because whatever. The LCP is very, very clear on what you have to do. And so is the 2013 analysis, which postdates the last time this was reviewed as a landslide.
Okay, let's do something here. We beat
I'll
this
make a
horse.
motion I guess the only motion I can make is to return this as a CDP.
And I will add that it's also a commercial use, not residential. So there's a higher duty of care. So the stability factor is maybe even more important. And I will second John's motion.
To clarify for the record, the motion is that the issuance of the ACDP shall not become effective, but shall, if the applicant wishes to pursue the application, be treated as a regular CDP.
That is my motion.
Right. Just for the record, it's pretty well established in federal law and state law that this is a residential use and entitled to all of the same treatment as residential use. And if we try to underline the fact that we don't like it by putting that somehow in the motion, or all you're doing is calling attention to the fact that, yeah, we're violating federal law. So
I agree.
Not a great idea.
I agree, Craig. Are you going to accept my motion?
Yeah, I am. I wasn't intending to add anything different to it.
Okay.
Hey, Rebecca.
Vice Chair Mazza,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Jennings.
I don't know. I'm on the basis of Richard's assurance that this is the practice we have followed in the past. I'm going to vote no.
Commissioner Peak,
I'm a little bit uncomfortable with it as the way it is, so I'm going to vote yes.
Chair Smith,
Given who the consultants are that's on this, I'm going to vote no.
motion carries.
Okay. 45 minutes spent on a receiving file. That's got to be a record. 3B3. Craig had pulled this.
Yeah, quick question. This one just reported that groundwater was encountered at 27 feet below grade, and that's not typically reported to us. And I just wondered if that's at all unusual. Also, second question, it's I said one question, two questions. The pits are right near the property line at 30100 Harvester, which is a burnout. And I just wondered if there's an owner present there. Have they received notices, and are they looking after their own interests? I don't think we need a full staff report. I just
Yeah, I think the first question about the groundwater, I don't know if I'm qualified to say, or if Richard is, perhaps Kevin. I think Kevin Berger was also.
Yeah, this is Kevin Poffenberger night.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you can answer that one. I
Poffenberger bobblehead. Sorry.
Is he still with us? Yes, he is. Mr. Poffenberger.
But maybe we can finish with Tyler asking the questions, and then before we bring him in, we could take any disclosures and open any public comment.
Very good.
Oh, in terms of, I think the second question was the distance of the pits to the property line. The plot plan I'm looking at doesn't have dimensions. It does look a decently far enough away. Which property line were you concerned with, Commissioner Hill?
It's on the west side, 30100, and the question was really, is that owner in the loop? Are they aware of what's going on? Because it is a burnout, so I don't know if are they rebuilding it? Have they rebuilt it? Are they actually living there now? Is that just, are they in play or not?
Craig,
Yeah.
The 30100, I did the electrical for that fire rebuild, and it's complete and signed off and everything else. So the house is there. adjacent to it. I don't know the people of the house that we're referencing here tonight. But I don't know.
Certificate of
Hard
occupancy.
disclosure with that, but there is a house there.
Certificate of occupancy.
Yeah, I believe that was issued like probably a year ago.
So presumably there's people there that know what's going on, and if they had an issue, they would have weighed in.
Yes, and just to my knowledge, they always said that they really like their neighbors, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah. So with the there's someone raised their hand, but with the de minimis waiver, there is a posting affidavit, a posting on the property, and an affidavit submitted by the applicant to let us know. But I don't think there's a 10-day noticing as would be for an ACDP. We did get I think we did get a concern. It wasn't regarding the distance to the property line. It was more so about noise. Can't remember. It might have been the other one actually that was about noise, but maybe Jason has a question.
He is the applicant for this item.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
But can we first take disclosures and then open it for public comment? Chair Smith?
Yes, please. Rebecca?
Would you like to take disclosures?
Yes.
None for me.
None for me.
None for me.
None for me.
And would you like to open the public hearing?
Yes, public hearing, please.
Thank you. And then Jason Herber for the applicant team.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, we
Yeah,
can.
the architect and applicant, I just wanted to make a point that we did provide a posting on the property, notifying neighbors of this upgrade.
So my question
That's it.
outstanding was that we had a measurement of groundwater level, and we don't usually see that. And I just wondered if it was significant in any way.
And Jason, if you have the answer to that question, if you could click the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen. And if you could open for him.
That I do not have an answer for, unfortunately.
Thank you. Tyler? Well, I guess you just said you're not sure. Is Mr. Poffenbarger here? He would have an answer.
He is not the applicant for this item. Jason Herber is the applicant.
Oh.
I think Kevin might have been the one on the last one.
Oh, okay.
But he would be qualified, I assume, if you needed an answer on that, if he was willing.
He would be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a clear sense at all of whether, what does that really mean here?
Well, if we don't know, do you care? I mean, do you want to make any kind of motion, or are you just asking?
Well, I'm asking because it's usually it's not reported to us. So
it has to do with whether the percolation properties of the area, and it's a very, I can tell you from my own experience, Malibu Park is widely different from one area to another in terms of percolation ability, and but it goes to all of that data goes to environmental health, and they determine whether there's adequate percolation, whether the number of pits that are needed, so on and so on. So it's really it's a technical determination for environmental health, as far as I'm concerned.
okay, well, I don't have any basis to object to it. So I'm fine, I guess. So I just thought there might be an easy explanation.
Next.
So that's a receive and file as well, unless somebody wants to make a motion.
I hope that's where it sits. We're good to move forward.
Is the hand up here that
I
just left over?
think he just left it up, and I don't think he meant to.
Okay.
Mr. Herber, you're completed. There you go. Okay. 3B4.
We did that one already.
Oh, yes, we did. Thank you.
Oh, wait, 3B4 is Murphy Way.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
We did. We took a motion and
Oh,
we.
right.
Okay, so 3B5 is the minutes. And we have a public comment on this. Do we?
We do, if you'd like to open the public comment portion of the hearing.
I would.
You have to take
Do you
disclosure.
want to take disclosures first?
I guess so.
No,
we don't need disclosure.
This is not an
Okay.
application.
All right, perfect. Thank you. So if we could open, I'm guessing that Joe possibly has Colin in there. Otherwise, if you could confirm whether Colin is in there with you or if he is the phone number to donate a minute of time to you.
Hi, yes, it's Colin. I'd like to donate a minute, and so would Ryan Embry.
Oh, Jesus.
Just in case, I don't think I'll be that long.
Okay, and do we have a raised hand for, okay, if you could unmute for Ryan for him to confirm that he would like to donate a minute.
Actually, I'd like to speak.
Okay, so then Joe, you have 4 minutes.
Okay, so thank you. Regarding the minutes from March 21st, 2022, page 2 of 9, I did send this to Rebecca already. It says Joe Drummond requested clarification on why new owners of Woolsey fire parcels are able to build like for like plus 10% with just a planning verification. But I actually asked about projects built for like over 10% for new owners. So I'd request that correction be made in the minutes. So it should say like for like over 10% for new owners. I did express concern that developers would build mansions in replacement of regular Malibu homes. And I did find out later that it's an APR that's required, not just a planning verification, and for both original and new owners for under 50% increase in size. On page 4, Planning Director Malika clarified that the local LIP section 13.4.1 had no cap on how big an addition could be if the project qualified for an exemption from a coastal development permit. 1, no need for a septic upgrade. 2, no future improvements deed restriction on the home. And 3, if improvement was greater than 10% and the lot was not between the first public road and C, then the addition to the home could be processed. So ESHA was omitted from Richard Malika's reply, and the project mentioned at 6244 Bush Drive was also omitted and never brought back, even though its septic was upgraded and it was in ESHA. So I wanted to know what happened with this project. It was apparently issued a certificate of occupancy and didn't have to go through the proper CDP channels for this. I am jumping through hoops myself, overpaying fees for a 64 square foot deck that's still not approved after 2 years. But this whole house, 43% larger than the original one that was built with a new owner and occupied within 9 months without any code enforcement fees paid for the second story built before permit was approved, etc. This is beyond favoritism, given that this happened while the applicant was a sitting council member, and this is just not right and completely illegal. Plainly, the entire permit violation by a public official. The policy created by a former this also is in the minutes. The policy created by a former planning director was to allow for a planning verification to be processed and then followed with an administration plan review if the additional square footage was less than 50% of the past fire size of the home. These types of applications also receive an exemption from the requirement of a CDP if the exemption criteria contained in the LFP were met, but 6444 Bush Drive did not meet these requirements. So I'm just asking that address be added to the minutes and find out what's happened with that. It also happened in April 4th, 2022. I disagreed with the planning director's explanation of the Woolsey fire rebuild process. And I stated that the staff had established rules that violated Malibu codes and that all projects should be processed in the order received. In response to Ms. Drummond, Planning Director Malika clarified that the specific project question would be brought to the Planning Commission for its wastewater treatment system in the future, so it would not be appropriate to discuss specifics until the item was on the agenda. But this never happened. Again, why was the project at 6244 Bush Drive and its CDP never brought back to the Planning Commission? And then there were 2 other projects that were built over 50% limit that were mentioned but not added to the minutes. And there was one not mentioned that was at 5904 Canaan Doom. It was built over 71% larger than the original build. We'd like to know what happened with this one. I doubt they ever put it through a CDP. It's not a huge house. So I don't have a big issue with this, but I do have an issue with projects like this getting approved so quickly and small projects like mine taking years, so many fees and studies required also. And there's also no detail on the discussion during the CUP hearing for Aviator Nation, such as the mention of no tables and chairs for the restaurant, showing it's more of a nightclub, and the 300-person events not having enough parking allocated for one. Minutes should record speaker's position stated in the sign-up record, i.e. for or against, such as on page 15. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Ryan Embry.
Thank you. I want to say one of the same things that Joe mentioned actually is on the hearing item for the Aviator Nation project, the CUP, where they had to have a wall down the middle of it, and they're counting, I guess, the occupancy level and all that stuff. There were 5 speakers listed, and that's it. We would have been recognized for what we'd said in all other versions of minutes of this city, and it doesn't list anything other than the name. It doesn't say whether you what topic you raised, or your position on something, or you're in favor of the motion, or you're against the motion. This is much too important of a matter for the city for you to approve it. It's basically a whitewash. It says nothing. Basically, it's an attendance record that people filled out the form to speak, but has nothing to do with the record of the testimony, not even a synopsis. So I would suggest you not approve the minutes until you make a staff correction by maybe just playing the speaker's information of what occurred in the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And that concludes comment, unless there's someone else present in the meeting who wishes to provide comment. If so, please click your raise hand button at the bottom of your screen now.
Okay, I don't see anyone else. Vice Chair Mazza.
I just would like Trevor to give us a brief description of what's required in minutes and whether or not this is not the same as a consent item. I assume things can be changed in it if they're on the legal record.
Yeah, we record the entire hearing for these things, so that is actually the record of the proceedings here. I believe the city's practice for the planning commission is to take action minutes, and so it doesn't require the level of detail that is requested here. If there are requests to make changes to the minutes, they can be directed to go back to staff to go and make additions if that's the pleasure of the commission, but it is the official record is the actual recording, which we do have, in this case. I also wanted to confirm, Commissioner Peak, are you recusing yourself from this item? Or are you abstaining from this item because you weren't there for this? Is that correct? Is he here, or is he?
He has recused himself, I believe. He is mute.
Abstained,
He's
right?
videos off.
Abstained, yeah.
Abstained.
Abstained.
Commissioner Hill.
Yeah, well, because of what Trevor just said, and that's true, and that the record is the recording, I would say let's not mess with what's here. Let's accept it and move on and get staff working on getting the minutes more up to date. And
I'll second that motion.
And to be, from here on out, to be making a point of trying to summarize in a few words what each of the speakers' positions were. If they're at all substantial, if you're going through the recording anyway, you might as well just jot a few words down on the various positions that might have been stated. But yeah, let's keep moving forward, I guess, is the main point.
Okay. So we have to take a vote on this.
There should be a motion to approve the minutes as presented by staff. I'll make that motion if that wasn't Craig's motion. I'll make it.
Okay,
It needs a second.
Yeah, and I don't know, can I put in a motion that we should be treating the minutes a little bit differently from here on out, or?
I believe our city attorney told us that the record is what the meeting is, Commissioner Hill, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken. So I don't know that we have to add anything to this other than if you want to move forward, we can take that vote now and move forward.
I think Rebecca had a comment.
Yeah, let's hear from Rebecca.
I basically, as City Attorney Rusin commented, these are action minutes. The practice has been that when we open 2A, we do give a little brief synopsis of the topic being discussed by members of the public. As we get into the individual items in the hearings, it is just provided as a list of names of speakers. If people want to listen to the speaker in full, they have the option of playing the video to do so. But we have not historically, so that would be a new change and a more time-intensive change in practice.
Can I ask you a quick question, Rebecca?
Yes, of course.
In the past, I've tried to get some really old tapes, like 1998, and never did quite figure out how to get them because they were somewhere in a box on video and may have been degraded or something. Do we have any new methods so 20 years from now there will actually be a record?
We do have much better processes now. I believe Alex and/or Parker are present in the meeting at the moment, and they can better speak to the preservation techniques we're currently using, but we do have a much stronger video record today than was had in the early days of cityhood.
Thank you. I'll second whoever made the motion.
Motion to approve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say I made the motion, unless Jeff has a reason he wants to.
No.
I don't know. I'll move to correct the minutes the next time it comes up as to whoever made the motion.
I am so sorry. I am now very confused as to first and second. Trevor, would you weigh in?
The way I see it, there wasn't a second for Craig's motion that had some additional requests beyond the just straight approval of the staff's recommendation. So I think I would just to clarify for the record that the motion was to approve the minutes made by Commissioner Jennings and then seconded by Commissioner Mazza.
Thank you so much, Trevor. Commissioner Jennings.
Yes.
Vice Chair Mazza.
Yes.
Commissioner Hill.
Yes.
Commissioner Peak. Oh, sorry, he's abstaining. Chair Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Before I make a motion to adjourn, I'd like to dedicate the meeting to John Wall for all his service in Malibu. If that's okay with the rest of the commission?
Fine with me.
Yes, I've heard the name, but obviously I've never met him, but yes, absolutely.
He had a great sweatshirt that he used to wear that said, "Insufficient memory at this time."
And he was a PhD in astrophysics.
No kidding.
He also grew great avocados.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that. You take it.
Vice Chair. Oh, okay. Vice Chair Mazza.
Yes.
Commissioner Hill.
Yes.
Commissioner Jennings.
Yes.
Commissioner Peak. He is still recused, so we'll just say absent. And Chair Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries. You